There are moments in life when hope feels like a fading ember, quiet, fragile, almost gone. But then, sometimes, hope doesn't come in grand speeches or sweeping miracles. Sometimes, it arrives in the simplest form, a single story printed on soft cotton, worn across someone's chest like a quiet rebellion against darkness. Today, we're diving into the unbelievable journey of people who turned heartbreak into healing, sadness into strength, and a simple t-shirt into a movement that has changed thousands of lives. You've heard of success stories, but this is a hope story. Some movements start with massive campaigns, huge budgets, or celebrity endorsements. But this one began with nothing but a broken heart, a blank notebook, and a bold idea that felt too small to matter until it did. The person behind this journey never planned to inspire anyone. They didn't set out to be extraordinary. In fact, they were just trying to climb out of their own darkness when the spark appeared. And like most sparks, it started unexpectedly, quietly, almost accidentally. They wrote a message on a t-shirt, just a few honest words that reflected what they wished someone had said to them during the hardest days of their life. They didn't know it yet, but this t-shirt would soon become a lifeline for people they had never met. At first, it felt silly. Who was going to care about one simple message? Who was going to pause in the chaos of their life to read it, much less feel something because of it? But the truth is, the world is full of people hiding storms behind their smiles. And when someone walked into a crowded place wearing that shirt, strangers started to stare, not in judgment, but in recognition. They saw themselves in those words. They saw wounds that looked like their own. They saw a bravery they had forgotten they still had. A single t-shirt spoke louder than anyone expected. The idea grew slowly at first. A friend asked for a shirt, then a coworker, then someone online who had never met them but felt an unexplainable connection to the message. Every time someone wore it, the story spread like a whisper, traveling gently from one heart to another, and each time it landed, it brought comfort. People began sharing their struggles, their memories, their scars. Stories that had never seen the light suddenly had a safe place to breathe. And in those moments, something powerful happened. Hope started multiplying. You see, hope doesn't spread with force. It spreads with honesty. It spreads when someone chooses to stand up, even while their knees are shaking, and says, "This is what I've been through. This is what I survived. And here I still am." That simple message printed on cotton became a vessel for these confessions, these truths, these tiny sparks of courage hidden inside everyday people. And what began as one story suddenly became hundreds. The person behind this movement found themselves reading messages from strangers who said that a simple t-shirt had stopped them from giving up. A few words had encouraged them to keep trying, to reach out, to tell someone the truth about how they were feeling. In a world where people scroll past each other like ghosts, these shirts forced connection. They turned silence into conversations. They turned pain into purpose. But here's the most beautiful part. This wasn't a business. This wasn't about selling something. This was about giving something. Every shirt represented someone who felt unseen finally being acknowledged. Every story printed became a small rebellion against despair. Every person who wore one became a walking reminder that healing isn't reserved for the lucky. It's possible for all of us. And the stories didn't stop. They kept coming, wave after wave, stories of loss, stories of survival, stories about battling illness, depression, bullying, heartbreak, trauma. Every story was unique, but the feeling behind them was universal. I want to feel less alone. The movement began weaving these stories into designs, simple, beautiful, heartfelt messages that held real weight. Not fancy slogans, not empty motivational quotes. Honest reminders like, "You matter more than you know. Healing takes time. One day at a time. It's okay to start again." People didn't wear these shirts as decoration. They wore them as declarations. Some wore them because they had survived something difficult. Some wore them because they were still fighting. And some wore them simply to spread kindness to someone else who may have been silently struggling. It wasn't fashion, it was armor. But every great movement faces challenges. As this idea grew, pressure increased. Keeping up with messages, printing more shirts, supporting more stories, it became overwhelming. There were days when the creator questioned whether they could continue. Days when the weight of people's pain felt like too much to carry. But each time, doubt crept in, another story arrived. Another thank you message. Another person saying that wearing one of these shirts gave them courage they didn't know they still had. And that was enough to keep going. Eventually, something incredible began to happen. The movement no longer belonged to one person. It belonged to everyone who wore the message. Everyone who shared their story. Everyone who believed in the quiet power of hope. Schools began using the shirts to encourage students. Support groups wore them during meetings. Families wore matching shirts during walks to honor loved ones they had lost. And strangers, complete strangers, stopped each other on sidewalks, saying, "Hey, I needed that today. Thank you." Hope was spreading from street to street, city to city, heart to heart. The movement took another step forward when they began hosting story nights, small gatherings where people could come, share their truth, and listen without judgment. Some people cried, some laughed, some spoke for the first time in months. But everyone left feeling lighter than they came. Because sometimes, the greatest healing happens when someone finally feels heard. The t-shirts became tickets into these conversations, invitations for connection, reminders that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. And with each gathering, the creator realized something profound. People didn't just want hope. They wanted to give hope. They wanted to take their own survival, their own scars, and turn them into something meaningful. Something that could help someone else survive too. The shirts became symbols of that intention. And then came the moment that changed everything. A woman reached out saying that her younger brother had been going through a dark time, and she didn't know how to help him. She bought him a shirt with the message, "You are not alone." She didn't think he'd wear it, but he did. And later, he told her something she never expected to hear. He said that wearing it didn't just make him feel supported, it made him feel responsible. Responsible for giving that message to someone else who needed it. And that responsibility gave him purpose. It gave him strength. It gave him a reason to keep going. One shirt, one message, one life changed. Stories like that kept arriving, each one more powerful than the last. And with every story, the movement grew not in size, but in depth. It wasn't about how many shirts were sold. It was about how many lives were touched. How many people found courage because of a stranger's message. How many hearts felt a little less heavy because someone dared to print truth on fabric. The creator realized something important. Hope doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require huge gestures. It doesn't require you to fix anyone's life. It only asks you to show up, to be present, to offer kindness where before there was silence. Every shirt became a reminder that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. A journey people shouldn't have to walk alone. Through storms, setbacks, and challenges, the mission stayed the same. Spread hope, one story, and one t-shirt at a time. It didn't matter how big the movement became. What mattered was that every message stayed real, every story stayed honest, and every shirt carried a piece of someone's heart with it. And maybe that's why this movement has lasted. Because it isn't built on trends, money, or marketing. It's built on connection, on humanity, on those fragile moments when someone chooses to believe that their story matters. When someone chooses to believe that sharing their truth might help someone else survive theirs. As long as people feel pain, as long as people feel alone, and as long as people need reminders that hope still exists, this movement will keep going, because hope doesn't run out. It spreads. Quietly, gently, powerfully. And the next time you see someone wearing a shirt with a simple message on it, you might realize something. Maybe that person isn't just wearing fabric. Maybe they're wearing a story. Maybe they're wearing their survival. Maybe they're wearing a piece of someone else's heart who wanted to remind them that brighter days still exist. And maybe, just maybe, that message is meant for you too. Hope doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it shows up in a message printed on a shirt, carried by someone who had no idea their courage would touch a stranger's life. If this story reached you, hold on to that feeling. Let it remind you that your story still matters, your voice still matters, and your presence in this world is still needed. Because the truth is simple. Hope spreads. And today, it spread to you.